Hey everybody, Nickie Brown here. No matter where you are and what part of the world you are in, I hope that you are having a good day. Okay, so I just wanted to have a talk, another little chit chat, which is something that I do in between cooking or doing some hair or reading tarot cards. I like to give messages. This is something that I've been doing for a long time. If you've never seen my channel, you can go back and look at some of the other videos that I've done having different talks. I have shared at least parts of my story. So this is going to be like just a different perspective, right? And basically, I'm going to talk about being a people pleaser and how I found out that I was a people pleaser. How I found out was actually at work. I guess it was last year or the year before, because I had this sciatic nerve pain from April 7th of 2021 until June of 2022 when I started to feel better, and it's now August, so I really just started feeling better a couple months ago. But trauma from your childhood can roll over into adulthood. And for me, this trauma started in the womb or in the pre-conscious state. In the womb, I was made to feel not worthy, not enough. And to have the thoughts that if my parents didn't want me, no one will. And why did I feel that way? Because I was not wanted, right? Both my parents were narcissists, and basically my mother said the only reason she had me is because she waited too late to tell her parents, and she couldn't have an abortion, right? It was too late for her to have an abortion. She was too far along, too many months along. But this type of trauma that starts in the womb can lead to dis-ease as an adult, because your body is not at ease, right? We hold on to that trauma knowingly or unknowingly, consciously or subconsciously, right? And when I was a little girl, my grandmother would say, and I've told this story before, she would say, if you don't speak your mind and say how you're feeling, you'll get sick. And I used to think, like, what are you talking about, lady? I'm not sick. I don't have a cold. Because I didn't understand what she meant by that at that time. But now I fully understand what she meant, right? Now, while I was earning my life coaching certification, I realized I was a people pleaser. But prior to that, maybe, say at least 6 months prior, I had a supervisor at work tell me I was a people pleaser. And the reason she would say that is because I would do my work and do it very thoroughly. Whereas a lot of the people around me, they weren't interested in doing any work at all. They wanted to do the bare minimum. There's a new saying, like, people quit without actually quitting. Like, they just do the bare minimum to earn their paycheck, right? And they're not doing any more. They'll slap off as much as they possibly can. But my mindset is, idle mind is, the devil's playground. And two, I came from the restaurant background where if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. Like, keep yourself busy. And so my mindset was to keep myself busy. I wasn't really interested in flirting, although I have a friendly demeanor. So people would think that I was flirting anyway, when I was just really being friendly in my mind. I really was not flirting, but that was the assumption, that because I'm smiling and talking to different men, that means I'm flirting, when I really was not flirting, right? I'm just, because I was the same way with the women, right? I treated everyone the same. I treat everyone the same. Unless you have a certain place in my life, I treat everyone the same. There's no, love thy neighbor as thyself. So I have that mindset, right? And again, if you're a special person in my life, then that's different. But, you know, even still, and this phone may die because it's getting hot. Anyway, let me try to finish up. So, because I was raised to believe I couldn't do anything right, as an adult, I began to hold myself to these high standards. So my philosophy at work was do it right the first time so nobody has to say anything to you. You don't have to do it again, over and over again. I'm going to go stand in the freezer for a moment or put the phone in the freezer. Oh, I can get my ice pack because I don't want the phone to go dead. That was my philosophy. And it may sound funny because the phone's in the freezer, but I just wanted to cool down for a moment. My philosophy was do it right the first time. But again, it comes from my childhood because I was made to feel that I couldn't do anything right, or, nothing that I did was good enough, right? So as an adult, when you're raised like that, you start to do it to yourself, and you start to make yourself feel like, it has to be perfect, or it has to be done a certain way, or I'm just going to do it myself because, I want it done right. So it kind of becomes, you can kind of become controlling or even narcissistic, or even develop like OCD, right? Because again, I was holding myself to high standards and I didn't realize it. And people would say, oh, you're trying to impress. And I would be like, what are you talking about? I'm not trying to impress any manager or supervisor. I'm just doing what I do, which again was number one, keep myself busy because I didn't want to stand around gossiping and, doing things that I just, I didn't want to do that. And just having idle conversation, telling my business. I wasn't interested in that. I just wanted to do my work and go home. Stay busy throughout the day, get the work done, make sure the orders got out, and, learn the different processes within the job function, and again, go home. So I had convinced myself that, I just wanted to do it right the first time, like I said. And to avoid being told to do it again or that something was wrong, again, I wanted to make sure that, again, in my mind, I wasn't doing it perfect, but I just wanted to make sure it was right? But I didn't realize that this was unhealthy. And again, it could lead to OCD, and I had OCD when I was younger. I remember, those New Year's Eve, when New Year's Eve was approaching, the day of, and I would go around, thoroughly cleaning everything and washing all the laundry. And one year, and I was in my mid to late 20s, I washed up everything in the house. And then once I was done washing everything and cleaning the whole house, I went to take a shower. It was right before midnight, 11 something, 11:50 something even. I was like, okay, let me hurry up and jump in the shower before the new year comes in. And I realized that I was taking off dirty clothes. So there's no way you can ever really have completely clean clothes. New Year's Eve made me realize that, you can't, maybe if I had finished earlier and I was able to take a shower, put clean clothes on, and then wash what I had taken off. But it was 3 pieces, a shirt, pants, and underwear. Are you really going to wash? Some people do wash small loads, and I get that. But are you really going to wash these small loads just so that you can say everything that you own was clean when the new year came in? It's a little obsessive. It's a little compulsive. It's a little OCD. And I was like, you know what? Everything doesn't have to be in my 20s. I started to see these different patterns that I had, and I started to pull back some of them gradually over the years. Like I said, this happened in my mid to late 20s. But I was basically a love child, or what's known as the product of two narcissistic parents. And my mom didn't require my father to be there for me or provide for me or take care of me, but they would secretly connect with one another to have sex over the years. And I didn't find that out until I was an adult. And at one point my father moved in with my mom and my little sister, but I was already an adult, moved out the house. So basically my father was absent from my life, right? But again, they would sneak to have sex. And when I found out I was an adult, I was like, really? Like, I'm now realizing again that they were both narcissistic. And this is, when you just have a child that you don't really want, this is what happens. This is one of the things that happens. The child is mistreated by both parents. And then the child could potentially, either the child repeats and mimics the same behavior, or the child rebels against it. And I was just so happened to be someone who rebelled against it. But again, I realized I had certain habits, like even yelling at my son. But he helped me to learn from that, because I realized that I was doing to him what was done to me, and I didn't like when it was done to me. It took time. And, we had to kind of go through our growing. My apologies. I accidentally cut the camera off. Yeah, but my son and I had to go through our growing pains of a relationship, because I was again repeating the cycle of things that were done to me, but I didn't realize that's what I was doing at first, until he really brought it to my attention and helped me to learn what I was doing. And that, like I said, I didn't like when it was done to me the first time. And I said that I wouldn't do that to my child. But here I was, repeating the same cycle, repeating the same behaviors, because I didn't know what else to do, especially being a single parent. And realizing that basically, my son's father basically just wanted to trap me so he could try to control me, right? And a people pleaser is basically someone people consider to be kind and helpful, willing to help you, study or buy something, or with a project, or, with your own children, or whatever that looks like. But it can make you very dependent or codependent. Now, being raised by, narcissists, you learn to be independent. So the people pleaser doesn't necessarily need other people, but they want other people to need them, because it satisfies some of the needs that they didn't get growing up. Just the need to have that sense of belonging or connection. And if we're not careful, again, we could become, the things that we didn't like when we were younger. I was basically, a person who grows up to be a people pleaser may or may not have been trained during their childhood to cater to this adult parent, at the expense of themselves. My mom would take my money, my paycheck. She would steal from me. She would create conflict between me and my little sister. And they basically want you to give up your life to cater to them. cater to your parents or cater to your other relatives. It's like they have this sense of entitlement, and they make you feel guilty. They try to make you feel guilty, and like you owe them something because you were even born, right? And if you try to break free from it, they'll pull you back in. They'll get other family members to try to pull you back in and make you feel guilty or ashamed. They'll even solicit your friends if they need to. Like, oh, well, you only get one mother, or that's your mother, or I wish my grandmother was still alive, and, things of that nature. Um, and as a child, these types of adults will make you feel stupid as a child. You're told things like a child should be seen and not heard. Or after you get a spanking, you're told to shut up and cut out all that crying before I give you something to cry about. Even after being told, you could even be told to shut up and stop crying after you fall and hurt yourself, right? Instead of being shown loved or hugged and comforted and, being allowed to express yourself. Then as an adult, like in my 20s, I started to realize like my mom was jealous of me. And it was weird when I learned it, that my mother was jealous of me. And then, in my 30s, actually, I fully embraced the fact that, my mother was jealous and in competition with me. And I was like, well, wait, what is this? Like when I was younger, she told me, oh, well, when I had you, you stopped me from getting the things that I used to get from my parents. Like you took away my, my lifestyle, so to speak. Like it was my fault she had me. And now she can't get some of the things she used to get because she had me. But basically this is neglect. Like I was neglected. Real talk. Like, I'm laughing, and I'm not laughing because it's funny. But sometimes there's this uncomfortable, nervous laughter that comes up. And if that offends you, I'm not sure what to say, because this is how I cope with what I've had to deal with. So again, I'm not laughing because I think that the situation is funny. And we have to understand that everybody deals with stress and tension differently. Like everybody expresses themselves differently. Some people express themselves with anger, and some people express themselves with laughter, even though it's a serious matter, and and they're taking it seriously. This is a coping mechanism. Okay? So please understand that. But this is neglect, it's verbal abuse, it's emotional abuse, it's mental, physical, financial abuse, and it's constant, unwarranted criticism. Like you're being criticized, for nothing. And then as an adult, people wonder why certain people can't take constructive criticism, true criticism that is warranted. Is because, we may have been beat up so bad and beat down so bad and mentally abused and emotionally abused so bad that as an adult, you can't discern the difference. But a people pleaser, doesn't really realize that this is what they're doing. Because when this adult caretaker, whether it be a real parent or step parent or foster parent, adopted parent, whatever that looks like, aunt, uncle, whoever, grandparent, whatever. If this person is abusing you in some way, or they're a narcissist, and they raise you to be a people pleaser and cater to them, when they give something to you, they only give to manipulate you and not from the kindness of their heart. Right? And if they're unable to control you, let's say it's money, right? If they're unable to control you with this money, they'll give you the silent treatment. Some will even go so far as to do black magic behind your back to try to control you. Right? Because if they give you money, then they'll come back and try to get you to do what they want you to do. And if you don't, they try to make you feel guilty or ashamed. And again, if this form of control doesn't work, they get mad and they retaliate in some way. And some think that by giving you the silent treatment that they're hurting you, but when in some situations they're just showing you how to live without them. And they don't even realize that. Or if they do black magic and you're working on healing, it's not going to work. And they're wondering why certain things are backfiring on them. And they may even think that you're doing that to them. And after all of this mistreatment, a child learns how to express themselves in unhealthy ways, right? Some children become depressed or angry or even narcissistic themselves. They become bullies because this is essentially what's going on. You're being bullied and controlled and manipulated. So in my 20s, I realized that in all of the previous relationships I was attracting my parents. I ended up dating a Virgo for 6.5 years, and when that relationship was finally over, we were physically in a relationship for 6.5 years, but we were still emotionally attached, unhealthy attachment, for a total of 14 years. And like I said, I realized my mom is a Virgo. So after that relationship was over, I realized that I attracted my mom. And the relationship I had before that, I had attracted my father. Right? And they do this gaslighting and what do you call it? Love bombing. And, initially they make you feel so good about them and the relationship. And then attacks start. The criticism and the you have to be perfectism. Although I know that that's not a word, but for the sake of this talk, it's a word. But I was attracting toxic men who again were basically resembling my parents. A man who, was emotionally detached and unavailable and only wanted to be there for his son if he could manipulate and control me. And when he realized he couldn't manipulate and control me, he got mad. He became angry. But there were parts of me that were emotionally unavailable because it was a defense mechanism, because I didn't know how else to cope. And again, I didn't realize that I was this way when I was younger. And for years I thought, I'm going to be totally honest with you. When I was 18 and I left the house, I thought all women were bitches and I did not want any female friends. And I naturally gravitated towards men and I had more male friends. And then of course everybody thought that I was screwing all, the different guys that I was cool with. But no, actually I would get advice from them about other men in relationships. The guidance I didn't get growing up. Then even in high school, I remember I changed high schools. So I'm the new girl at school. And so, men are going to try the new girl at school, right? Attractive female, whatever their thoughts are. And the women at my high school would get mad at me because some of the guys were attracted to me. How is that my fault? But it just made me have this perception of women like they're all bitches. They're all backstabbing, evil, conniving, and I don't want to have anything to do with them. And then I had a best friend. She betrayed me. And so I really kind of distanced myself from women. And again, I didn't realize until I was in my 40s, I think, early 40s, that this was toxic. It's not good for a female to not be able to have female relationships, but I didn't have that trust with the women in my life on either side, my maternal or my paternal side, right? Because people pretend to be there for you, but they're really only using you for what they want to use you for. And it's hard to have a connection in a relationship with somebody who's not truly genuine, or with someone who has entitlement issues and is really trying to manipulate and control or make you feel ashamed and guilty with their narcissistic patterns. We're not supposed to diagnose anybody, but when a person has more than, I think, 7 of the narcissistic traits, if it quacks like a duck, that's all I'm going to say about that. Um, yeah, so for years I thought that all women were toxic and men were emotionally unavailable. But I realized after the fact I had attachment issues and codependency issues, addiction issues, and addiction to food, which is one of the worst addictions, and most people have addictions to food, because I would use food for comfort. Up until I was from a baby to like 13, I used to suck my thumb, so that was my comfort. Then after that, it pretty much switched to food, and in particular sweets. A lot of chocolate and cake and, ice cream and cookies. You know, that's how I coped, right? Then in April of 2013, I was talking to this guy, and he was a DJ. And if you know, most DJs have a lot of fans, and in essence, they have a lot of partners, right? And I could tell that he was not into me, but at the same time, he was pretending to be. And when my father died, I had this like complete breakdown. And I ended up acting really erratic and irrational. And I realized in that moment, because I had sent him an email, and it was this long email, and I was like, wait, you're afraid of a rejection and abandonment. And it wasn't until my father passed away, because prior to that, I thought I had already started healing and forgiving and all that good stuff, which I did, but not to the degree or not on the level that I really needed to. I realized I still had a fear of rejection and abandonment when I was talking to this DJ, and my father passed away at the same time. So for my whole life, for the most part, unknowingly, I felt unprotected. And I felt I needed to stand up for myself because nobody else would. So I learned different ways to protect myself. And one of the ways of doing that is to just completely distance myself from people who I felt were toxic and unhealthy for me. I'm not going to yell at you, curse at you, fight with you all the time. And I have stayed in certain situations way longer than I should have. Because like my ex that I was with for 6.5 years, the first red flag was when he told me that I was stupid for having a baby. That was one of the biggest insults. And then, I wore like a size 12, right? So maybe when I met him, I was an 8 or a 10. And then, during our relationship, I gained weight and I was like a size 12. And he would poke me in my stomach and say, oh, you're getting fat. My grandmother used to do the same thing. Oh, look at your stomach. I never had a stomach that big when I was your age. Let me remind you that I was only a size 12. But it made me feel like I was a 16. And so I went out and bought clothes that were a size 16. And it took me a couple years to realize the size 16 was way too big for me. But that image was planted in my head that I was just so fat. Because you have people telling you this, and I was kind of being stubborn, like, leave me alone. I'm going to eat what I want to eat and do what I want to do. And I was rebelling against it, but I was never really that big. It wasn't until for myself, like, if I would try to walk a block, I would be out of breath. And, in the summertime, I was just really hot. And then I would have strangers, come up to me and say, oh, how many months are you? And I'm not pregnant, but it's because I gained weight in my stomach. So again, I realized that I was using food for comfort and as an outlet, but I didn't want to gain more weight. So it was like either buy a bigger size or lose weight. And like, again, my mindset when I bought the bigger size, I pictured myself way bigger than I was. Even up until now, my weight kind of goes up and down, but even when I've lost like went down to like a size 4. I still saw a size 12 when I looked in the mirror. And people would say, oh, you lost so much weight, but I didn't see it. I had what they call body dysmorphic disorder. I didn't realize, like, until I put clothes on and they were really way too big for me, I was like, oh, I guess I really did lose weight. But still, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see it. That's how deeply someone can get into your head and mess up your psyche. And unless, again, you decide to heal and you really recognize these patterns of behavior, you can really sink down into that and really take on the fear and insecurities of someone else and make them your own, when really that's not yours. That baggage is not yours. Take your stuff out of there and go put it in a closet somewhere. Better yet, go throw it in a dumpster. Send it to the landfill. Because we allowed someone else to tell us who we are, and we don't fit the description. Letting someone else tell us that we're ugly or fat or bald-headed or nappy head or whatever. Big feet or whatever it is. It's toxic. And how you can stand up for yourself really is to distance yourself, even if it's temporarily, work on your healing, and then set boundaries and stand up for yourself that way when you're around these people. But even when you distance yourself, like I said, they'll try to draw you back in. They'll even solicit other relatives or friends. But they're still toxic because they've not gotten help. They're still abusive. But they'll call you crazy, or, they'll say you're dishonest and you're lying and that never happened and they didn't do this and they didn't do. I know my mother's friends used to say, why are you doing that to Nickie? Why are you treating her like that? I remember that. And I would even go as far as to say maybe even some of them distanced themselves because they didn't like the way she was treating me. And then she would do stuff like, she would smoke weed in front of me, but if one of her friends or somebody else was around, she act like she didn't do it in front of me. It was funny. My mother and my grandmother would have fist fights and call each other all kind of bitches and hoes, and my grandmother would call my mother a junkie because she does use drugs, and all kinds of names. It was so toxic. But again, this is when you share your story and tell your truth, people will say that you're lying because they don't want people to have this image in their mind, because they've painted this picture to be, this good person in front of other people and to the public. But behind closed doors, there can be a whole, I'm not going to name call. But the behavior is toxic. But they will gossip and spread lies about you to make you seem like you're the problem. And again, this creates a false sense of self and low self-esteem. And you really have to empower yourself to say, no, that's not me. That's not who I am. That's not what I look like. That's not what I'm about. My mother and my grandmother used, oh, you so mean, you so cold, you so uncaring, you so unkind, you such a bitch. And at first I took on that persona. But I've now realized it's because they couldn't manipulate and control me. Again, they would try to give me things to try to manipulate and control me. And when it didn't work, they would get mad and try to guilt and shame me for it. Because they couldn't control me. Again, I'm not laughing because it's a funny matter. I'm just looking back on what, the manipulation. Again, this is nervous and uncomfortable laughter because I don't know what else to do. Right? I have cried, but I'm not really a crier. I'm an Aquarius. Like, my skin is a little tough. And I apologize if, again, if you feel like you need to cry, please, by all means, do so. But the way that my personality is set up, it has empowered me to overcome the abuse. And to now laugh at, again, not that it was funny, but to laugh at the attempts to bring me down and belittle me. Because I couldn't be controlled and manipulated with money or gifts or whatever else. And like I said earlier, we either repeat the behavior or we stand up against it. And the things that we experience during childhood becomes triggers for us as adults. These become our limiting beliefs. I'm very appreciative that my supervisor told me I was a people pleaser. And then, like I said, subsequently, I learned about that in my coaching certification program. I had no idea that I was a people pleaser. And that I was holding myself to high standards. Not that there's anything wrong with having high standards or setting certain goals for yourself, but if you do it to an extreme, then it's a problem. Because we should also always have balance or duality, yin and yang, however you want to look at it. A balance of masculine and feminine energy. So the left side of the body is your masculine side. Are you standing up for yourself? I know that I wasn't standing up for myself at the job, and there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and people thought I didn't know, but I saw what was going on. I just wasn't standing up for myself. But that's one of the things that led to the sciatica. Because my mind, every day when I went in there, I felt like I had to fight. I didn't know, what was going to happen next, who they were going to send to me to try to provoke me or to get me to say something. And they thought that I didn't know or didn't realize what was going on, but I knew what was going on. And then one day my body just reacted to it and caused pain from my back all the way down my left side. That's where the sciatic nerve is. Even it will go up, and they say, oh, it's supposed to start in your back and go down, but that's not what my body did. So obviously that's not an exact science. Because I would even feel it up and in my neck and everything. And then when I suggested to doctors that maybe it could be something else, like Piri-Morris syndrome, they told me that was impossible because I would be in way more pain. I gave them like 4 different other diagnoses, and they told me no, that can't be it. But they wouldn't even really look into it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Again, I am a certified life coach, and I have healed a tremendous amount of the childhood trauma and inner childhood wounds that I experienced growing up. And I would love to help you do the same. If you're interested in having me help you, I would love to do so. You could just reach out to me in my inbox, via my website, lovetrainingcoach.com, www.lovetrainingcoach.com. You can inbox me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I don't have TikTok, but Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter I have, and YouTube. You can of course reach out to me on YouTube, and I'll be more than happy to help you. But I hope that this was helpful. I hope you maybe, if you recognize some of the patterns in you, or if you feel like you're a people pleaser and you never understood why, Some of these things may have a lot to do with it. And I'm not telling anybody to beat their parents up. I'm not even saying that you should distance yourself or go no contact like I did. You have to do what you feel is best for you. But maybe you just need to take a week or a month to distance yourself or isolate yourself or heal. Even if you just go on vacation, just to think about it. And you know, meditate or pray and really sort through the thoughts in your mind and some of the behaviors that you have, and some of the things that you may do to hurt other people that were done to you as a child that you don't realize that you're doing and maybe would like to stop. And work on other goals that you might have to maybe, you know, finish a project or finish school, or, you know, learn how to knit or sew or crochet or cook a Thanksgiving dinner. I don't know. Do ceramics, paint, go horseback riding. I don't know what you were interested in, but start to live your life and not be held back or held down by some of the things that happened to you as a child. But I love y'all, and again, I hope that this was helpful. Later. Mwah.